Viewers, welcome back to Focal Point. We want to speak about the geopolitics and the porousness of Uganda's borders. Uganda's borderline is about 2,700 kilometers. To the north, we have South Sudan, which covers a stretch of about 435 kilometers. The eastern borderline with Kenya is 933 kilometers. Southern border with Tanzania, 396 kilometers. Southern western border with Rwanda, 169 kilometers. And to the west, we have DRC, which stretches 746 kilometers. There are no high walls to protect our citizens, and for whoever comes in, we can only do so much.
We won't be building one.
I want to find out from Honorable Mulongo.
Yes, please.
It is clear that our borders are prone to infiltration from terrorists, and we do not have easy neighbors. Going forward, what do we do to protect ourselves?
Yeah. First of all, the notion that we must have a territorial borderline that is solid, protected from any movement, is not a good one. Those borderlines are only there for administrative purposes. But in terms of communication, movement across the border, the permeability must be there. This notion of extreme thinking, like in the States, where the South, they want to put up a solid wall against Mexico, that is untenable and is not sustainable. And I've seen also one of the neighbors saying they want to put up a strong wall. I hope that wall will not compromise the cross-border movements, the cross-border trade, the cross-border communication, because most of our ethnic communities are trans-border. Like for me, we have Bamasabu of Uganda, the Bamasabu of Kenya, the Karamajongs in Uganda, and the Turkanas in the other, Toposa and all this, the Bakonzo and the Banande. These people must be allowed to exchange in terms of trade, in terms of social activities and so on. So I think the Africans, having agreed in 1963 that we maintain the international borders as they were from the colonialists, we need to go ahead and see how best we can interrelate than actually stop the relationship. And that's why I think the President Museveni, among other visionary leaders in this continent, is going in for integration instead. Because once we integrate and relate very well, it will reduce on chances of conflict between us and those neighbors. And also ensure that a problem in those neighboring countries is inextricably a problem to us. So we go in to help one another to solve it. And that's why the UPDF have had long jump operations in the neighboring countries. And people wonder, why should they go to Somalia? Why should they? Because a fire burning a house in Somalia can actually eventually burn our house. So stability of Somalia means stability of Uganda, consequent in terms of trade and movements and so on. So to me, I'd rather go for a policy that allows integration, that allows permeability, communication, and then the security agencies do their part to monitor who are the wrong elements, trying to take advantage of this and so on. Others through globalization, with ICT development and so on, to say you're going to put up walls, to me it defeats the very purpose of why we should open up and interrelate.
We have DRC. Afande Paddy, and they're not part of the EAC that we're trying to create. And this DRC has brought in a lot of issues, and there's so many terrorist cells that are known. Shouldn't we put a wall to block such insurgencies from happening?
See, again, I want to say that we need to look at these things in a holistic manner. Mm-hmm. And I like the thinking of this French liberal, Frederick, who said that when goods don't cross borders, soldiers will. We're talking about a highly integrated global world where we are highly interdependent on each other. The security of one state impacts on the security of another.
Yeah.
We are trading amongst each other. We are talking about East African community. We are talking about regional blocks. Now, our peace is dependent on the peace of others. Now, so we cannot be thinking about wars now in this century. I think what we should be looking at is how do we further develop mechanisms that integrate our militaries, that integrate our economic sectors, so that we have common interests around which we rally as a region, as a people. This is what we should be looking for. Now, if states are weak, for example, if you have a weak state in the DRC, I know for a fact that you can have a problem. This explains why we have a multitude of actors, including ADF and others in Eastern DRC. But listen, when I was in Somalia, in one of the battles, we captured a passport which belonged to an Al-Shabaab commander. Mm-hmm. This Al-Shabaab commander had traveled to Uganda through Entebbe. He did not travel back to Somalia through Entebbe. I'm trying to explain the porousness of our borders.
Yeah.
Now, if we have to have a people who understand the importance of security, I think we need to underscore the idea that these borders don't mean much to us if we have to uphold the bigger concept of security. And people have to be vigilant. So that if I'm your neighbor, I should be interested in what happens. I need to know you.
Yeah.
Where do you come from? Where do you work? What time do you come in your house? What happens there? Do you fight with your wife? That can cause a problem if you're, for example, armed, if you have a private gun. So these are things we need to start talking in detail and understand security from a bigger perspective than really thinking about wars at this moment in time.
Kato, we have South Sudan. There's instability right now. We have DRC. Mm-hmm. The other countries, our neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania, we are at a talking level. Sure. What do we do with these problem children, if I may call them?
Well, I think we have, invested enough, militarily in South Sudan, for example. The authorities in Congo have allowed us access into their territory, to battle Joseph Kony, for example. But I think away from the military front, and this goes to politicians and security experts like Honorable Munango, we could also start, thinking about, investing, politically in those countries. If we have a chance, and if we can facilitate, political dialogue in South Sudan, for example, let's do that. There's been a political stalemate in DRC. They had to have elections last November. The president had to give the office away on 19th December. It won't be happening. They almost went to war. Everyone was warning, oh God, you don't know what you're going. So if we are able to facilitate political dialogue there, Kenya is having, there's an election coming up in Kenya. Yes. If there's a way we can help politically, because much of the conflicts we have in our neighboring countries, are a result of politics. Two people failed to agree in South Sudan and war broke out.
So what do we do with that? It has messed up our trade.
Exactly.
And we have to take care of the South Sudanese. They're our brothers. So how do you handle that?
We are a regional military power, but I think we can also be a regional political power. Our president was chosen to mediate the crisis in Burundi. Okay, he delegated to former President of Tanzania, Benjamin Mkapa. So I think that's going well. So we can also think about, reaching out to those nations in trouble, not, just using military means, but also political means to prevent them disintegrating, to prevent having bad neighbors or, problem children, as you call them.
Yeah. So we have an issue of guns. Ideally, these issues, as people come in, as we take care of refugees, people take advantage. According to the gunpolicy.org, which is funded by the UN, Uganda has about 400,000 guns, illicit and licit. Afande Paddy, do we know who owns these guns?
Well, I wish there was somebody from police to address that.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that there is a procedure before you acquire a gun. Very elaborate procedure. You apply right from the district.
Okay.
You get recommendations from the district. Your application is discussed at the level of the district security committee, which is chaired by the RDC and has all these security actors, the police, the military, and other actors, before your document is forwarded to the national level. There is a director in the police in charge of private arms.
Okay.
Now, this document is also looked at by the National Security Committee before the IGP can recommend anybody to acquire arms. But listen, I don't think the problem we have now is caused by private arms in wrong hands. I think we have a lot of unlicensed guns that may have found their way into our borders as a result of the problems that are across our borders in the DRC, in South Sudan, for example. The gun that killed the OC police in Kajas was traced to have come from South Sudan. We lie along the gun corridor. We are very vulnerable to guns coming from Somalia because of the proximity that we have with although we don't even share a border. But if you have ungoverned space in eastern South Sudan, you can be sure that guns can find their way. So the problem we have is not caused by private guns. Unlicensed guns that find their way in our country is the problem. I think this is where we need to plug. It comes back to the porousness of our borders.
We want to take a short commercial break, and when we return, I want to hear from Honorable Mulongo about the gun law. The gun policy has not been updated since 1960. What are we doing in Parliament to make sure we expedite this issue? We can be found on Facebook. Go to UrbanTV and Twitter at UrbanTV. Please follow us. Please send your comments, and we want to hear your viewpoint on this as we try and secure our borders and make sure that Uganda becomes and remains a peaceful country.